When an ambulance races to save a life, every second matters. Yet, in a neighborhood in Langfang, Hebei, an ambulance with a dying patient was obstructed by a private car. Ignoring the driver's shouts, the loud siren, and flashing red lights, the car's driver pushed forward, forcing the ambulance to reverse rapidly. This went on for about 8 minutes. Ultimately, the elderly patient passed away despite efforts to save them. The family said those lost minutes missed a critical window for treatment. This is not an isolated case in China. In Chengdu City, a woman at a red light blocked an ambulance. The driver stepped out several times, explaining the patient's urgent condition and begging her to move. She refused, citing fear of losing driving points, and even yelled back at him.
If someone in your ambulance passes away, what does it have to do with me? What can you do if I don't move?
The ambulance was delayed for 17 minutes. The patient did not survive. In another incident, a woman driving a Rolls-Royce worth 5 million yuan went to a maternity hospital in Beijing. Finding the regular entrance crowded, she drove straight into the ambulance emergency lane. When security stopped her, she lashed out at them. Left with no choice, the guards called the police. Even in front of officers, she remained defiant.
Listen, I'm not moving my car. Find me. Call the police. Do whatever you want. I have plenty of money. What can you do to me?
The police forcibly towed her car. The emergency lane was blocked for over an hour. As her car was being towed, she shouted,
If my car gets scratched, I'll make you pay until you lose everything.
Online users later commented and said, emergency lanes are meant to save lives. Blocking them is like blocking someone's chance to survive. Arrogance leads to trouble. Better to be humble and kind. The next video is even more shocking. An elderly woman on a bicycle fell at an intersection after being hit by another rider. The person who hit her simply rode away. A moment later, an older man riding a tricycle stopped and walked towards her. At first, it seemed like he was going to help. Instead, he grabbed her bicycle, moved it out of his way, and left without looking back. Even more disturbing is that some medical workers, whose job is to save lives, have also turned a blind eye.
Can you just lend it for a moment? Would it kill you? The person isn't breathing anymore.
We're waiting for instructions from our supervisor. There's nothing we can do.
Can't you make an exception? You have an AED. Why won't you let us use it?
In Shanghai, an elderly man suffering from a severe asthma attack was in critical condition and urgently needed a defibrillator. His family noticed an ambulance parked nearby and requested to borrow the equipment, but medical staff refused, stating that it could not be lent out. The man did not survive. The situation highlights broader concerns about emergency response and public attitudes towards life-saving efforts. In cases where every second counts, delays or refusals to assist can have serious consequences. Meanwhile, a recent incident in Taiwan highlighted the country's strong culture of yielding to ambulances. An ambulance was rushing an elderly pregnant woman in labor to the hospital, but became stuck in heavy traffic during rush hour. Just as the situation became urgent, something remarkable happened. As the ambulance siren blared, 50 cars ahead quickly moved aside in perfect coordination. Within just 5 seconds, the ambulance passed through without obstruction. The video quickly went viral on social media worldwide. Many viewers were astonished, comparing the scene to the biblical story of Moses parting the sea, as the vehicle smoothly moved aside in unison, allowing the ambulance to pass through without obstruction. Many expressed amazement at how seamlessly Taiwanese drivers coordinated to clear the way. Another recent incident in Taiwan also gained widespread attention. A driver sped through traffic for 4 minutes to save an injured Australian girl. On February 13th, a major gas explosion occurred on the 12th floor of the Shinko Mitsukoshi department store in Taiwan, resulting in 4 casualties and 36 injuries. At the scene, a retired bus driver, Mr. Tsai, was about to turn around when he saw a mother on the roadside holding her blood-covered daughter. The child was in critical condition. Mr. Tsai immediately rolled down his window and called out, "Do you need me to take you to the hospital? Do you? I'll take you there."
My daughter, please save her.
Mr. Tsai quickly opened his door, helped them into the car, and sped towards the nearest hospital. he honked repeatedly and shouted out the window, "Emergency! Sorry, emergency!" Drivers and pedestrians immediately made way. Even at red lights, vehicles allowed him to pass. On congested roads, he used a bus lane to gain precious time. A trip that would normally take 14 minutes was completed in just 4. The girl received emergency treatment in time and survived. The viral videos from Taiwan have drawn international attention to the country's traffic culture. Even Japanese viewers were surprised, commenting, "We follow traffic rules too, but the way Taiwanese drivers make way so quickly is something only they seem to be able to do. What's the secret behind this?" In reality, giving way to ambulances in Taiwan is not something people are trained for. It is deeply ingrained in the culture. What makes this practice so widespread is not just traffic laws, but a profound respect for human life. Seeing these stories, many people in mainland China have started reflecting. Why is it that Taiwanese people value life so much, while cases of indifference towards life are so frequently seen in mainland China? What has caused people in China to lose their basic sense of empathy and responsibility? In one video, a man in Taiwan, praised online as a driving god, encountered an ambulance on a narrow, steep mountain road. Since there was no space to pass, he reversed his car for an entire kilometer along a road flanked by a cliff on one side and a mountain on the other, allowing the ambulance to get through. In contrast, a man in China ignored an ambulance flashing its lights and blaring its sirens behind him. Instead, he casually walked in front of the ambulance, blocking its path. People online commented, "He's walking with a 'I don't care about anyone' attitude. Impressive." Another issue that has drawn criticism is the behavior of some drivers in China who tailgate ambulances to cut through traffic. An ambulance carrying a critically ill patient was stuck in traffic. A police car was leading the way to clear a path, but a white sedan took advantage of the situation and cut in front of the ambulance. It was only after being scolded by a traffic officer that the driver finally moved away. Another driver, in a hurry to save time, followed closely behind an ambulance to bypass traffic. The scene left many speechless. The patience of yielding to ambulances is not limited to Taiwan. In Hong Kong, similar behaviors have been widely observed. Footage from a 616 protest in Hong Kong, a large-scale demonstration advocating for civil rights, showed a massive crowd of over 2 million people partying to make way for an ambulance despite the densely packed streets. Many describe the scene as an extraordinary display of public cooperation. In stark contrast, in Yichang, Hebei, China, an ambulance was completely stuck in a massive crowd, unable to move forward. The challenges faced by ambulances in mainland China are not limited to traffic congestion. In many residential complexes, ambulances have been blocked by property management, delaying emergency care and, in some cases, leading to tragic outcomes. In one case, a newborn, not even a week old, suddenly stopped breathing. The father ran with the baby to the neighborhood gate, where an ambulance waited, but the gate was locked shut. Desperate, he handed the infant through the railings to the paramedics, begging them to rush the child to safety. Then he and the mother, still recovering from childbirth, climbed over the gate. Online people fumed. Locked before 9 p.m.? Is this a neighborhood or a jail? In another incident, an ambulance entered a residential complex to pick up a patient. After loading the patient, the crew discovered that the ambulance's wheels had been locked by property management. When questioned, a staff member insisted, "Once you're inside this complex, all vehicles are under my control. You parked illegally, so you have to pay a fine." The patient's family called a locksmith, but the property staff then locked the locksmith's car as well. With no other choice, the family paid the fine and rushed to the hospital. Later, in frustration, they smashed the property management's booth. Another heartbreaking video has drawn attention online. An 82-year-old woman was crossing the street when she suddenly fell face first to the ground, losing consciousness. As time passed, no one stepped forward to help. A white sedan approached the scene and waited for 3 minutes. In the end, the driver simply drove around the woman and left. The elderly woman had fallen in the middle of the road. If any vehicle failed to brake in time, the consequences would have been devastating. After an unknown amount of time, the woman slowly regained consciousness. Realizing the danger, she struggled to get up, but couldn't. A sanitation worker walked over, looked at her, then simply turned and left. Nearby pedestrians watched but did not intervene. Finally, a black car pulled up, and a firefighter stepped out. He quickly assessed the situation, took his own coat, and draped it over the woman. Then he instructed his colleague to call an ambulance. At that point, other passers-by also joined in to help. Thanks to their efforts, the elderly woman was saved. The video went viral, sparking intense debate over whether people should help fallen elderly individuals. Some people commented, "There's no right answer. Deep down, we all want to help, but we're afraid. There have been too many cases of people pretending to be victims and extorting Good Samaritans. It's not that people are heartless, it's just too risky to do the right thing." Others said, "Helping is like gambling. If you win, you get a simple thank you. If you lose, you could lose everything. I can't bet my family's livelihood on a stranger's honesty." But some disagreed. If we all refuse to help, what happens to those who genuinely need it? We all have elderly family members. What if it were them? Another person pointed out, "Did you notice? The moment one person stepped forward, others followed. People do want to help, but they're scared. It's all because of that one judge who ruined the trust in our society." The story about the judge mentioned here refers to a case that shocked the entire country. It was a ruling that shattered people's belief in the justice system. The case involved a young man named Peng Yu. While on his way to work, Peng Yu saw an elderly woman fall after colliding with someone. He quickly helped her up, took her to the hospital, and paid 200 yuan for her medical expenses. She was diagnosed with a fractured foot and needed surgery. Expecting gratitude, Peng Yu was shocked when the woman accused him of causing the accident and demanded he pay tens of thousands of yuan for her medical bills. After he refused, the case went to court. Peng Yu believed the legal system would prove his innocence, but the judge asked, "If you didn't hit her, why did you help?" The verdict was just as surprising. Without solid evidence, the court found Peng Yu 40% responsible and ordered him to pay 45,000 yuan in compensation. The verdict sparked widespread public anger. The Peng Yu case wasn't an isolated incident. It exposed deep flaws in the system. The law should uphold justice and shield good people, but instead, it often punishes the kind and lets the bad go free. After the case, helping the elderly became risky, and many, fearing scams, chose to ignore those in need. This pattern repeats across society. The kind-hearted suffer under the system, while rule breakers escape unharmed. Over time, this erodes compassion and respect for life. The suppression of kindness extends beyond aiding the elderly. On the roads, yielding to ambulances and fire trucks a civic duty leads to punishment, while those who don't yield face lighter consequences, creating an absurd reality. In Shanxi, a driver who gave way to an ambulance was fined 200 yuan and had 6 points deducted from his license. But if he had refused to let the ambulance pass, he would have lost only 3 points and pay the same fine. He asked, "So should we let ambulances through or not?" Another driver lost 6 points for letting a fire truck pass. His appeal was later denied. In Sichuan, a driver was fined and lost license points for yielding to an ambulance. His appeal, supported by photos, was rejected. Frustrated, he wrote, "Lesson learned. I won't yield even if an ambulance blares its siren behind me. Now I understand why others stay indifferent." Many wonder why people in Taiwan and Hong Kong display warmth and cooperation during emergencies, while mainland Chinese often seem cold and detached. The answer lies in history. Since the Chinese Communist Party took power, decades of propaganda and oppressive rule have cut ties between Chinese people and traditional values. Virtues like benevolence, righteousness, and integrity, once core to Chinese culture, have been crushed by political campaigns and a philosophy of struggle. Instead, a self-serving mindset has emerged. If I don't look out for myself, who will? Trust has eroded, respect for life has faded, and indifference now prevails. Videos from mainland China show ambulances blocked, bystanders unmoved, and even medical workers shirking duties. This isn't random. It reflects human nature warped by prolonged repression. For self-preservation, people avoid trouble. For gain, some trample others' lives. Fear stops them from helping the elderly or yielding to ambulances lest they face penalties. Communist rule has corroded morality. making kindness rare and ethics a luxury. Yet in Taiwan and Hong Kong, people retain reverence for life and care for others, yielding to ambulances and aiding in crises, not by legal force, but from an unshaken sense of duty. This contrast marks a profound tragedy for communist rule. Beyond destroying material wealth, it has hollowed out people's spirits. When empathy becomes scarce and saving lives risky, where can society turn? Next time an ambulance siren sounds, we might ask, are the roads blocked or have our hearts lost their way?